Hello everyone, it's Megan. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to this video that I didn't think would actually have to be made in 2021. Over on Twitter, there has been a lot of discourse and drama and arguments about pirating occult books. In this video, I want to give my perspective and my thoughts and opinions on piracy in the occult, witchcraft, pagan, spiritual community. I'm not talking about piracy of anything else at this point in time. Those are different opinions for different outlets. I think what started all of this, or from what I saw that started all of this, was on TikTok. Someone shared one of Matt Aron's exercises from Psychic Witch, exercise 23, and changed it slightly and didn't give credit and was passing off the entire exercise as their own. Matt stitched the TikTok. So if you're not familiar with TikTok, Matt took their video and then went on top of it, I guess. That's a weird way to describe it. I will leave a link to that Twitter thread in the description below. But Matt took this and explained how doing this is harmful not only to the community and the authors, but to the people that are watching the original TikTok, because it was changed and because the way Matt's exercises work, they're meant to go in succession from one all the way to the end of the book. That's how they work together and that's how they were designed. This whole thing sparked an entire argument on Twitter, with people arguing that piracy of occult books is wrong, and then people arguing that there's nothing wrong with pirating occult books and stealing from authors and taking food away from their families. Basically, that's how I see it. If you don't know what piracy is, it basically is like going online, typing into Google, so-and-so book free PDF, and finding a PDF that someone has put online for free and stolen the book basically from the author and not given the royalties and the payment that the author is due for their work. Now, this is harmful to the community for several reasons, and I'm going to focus on a couple of them, or I'm going to talk about a few of them. And this is coming from someone who actively partakes in this community, as well as who is also writing books for this community, who hasn't published anything yet for a couple of different reasons. But the main reason that pirating books and stealing books from occult or witchcraft authors is wrong is because you're taking their livelihood. You're taking money away from them and their families for selfish reasons. If you ask almost any occult writer, any witchcraft writer, they will tell you that writing doesn't always pay the bills. It takes so long just to break even on the work that people put into their books for it to even make a difference. Let's talk about royalties for a second. If you're not familiar with the way publishing works, when an author goes through a publisher or uses someone else to publish their books, even with Amazon, if you self-publish and use their Kindle Direct Publishing, KDP I think it's called, you are paid royalties. You're not paid specifically the entire amount every time a book sells. So for example, if a book is $10, and you get 10% royalties, for every $10 book you sell, you make $1. Now, I don't have any experience with big name publishers, what their contracts look like, or what their royalty percentages are. What I do have experience with is direct publishing through Kindle and Amazon. And I broke it down a little bit. There is someone on Twitter who actually broke it down based on a $15 an hour minimum wage. I'll leave a link to that Twitter thread in the description below as well. I actually went a little bit of a different route. When you publish through Kindle Direct, through Amazon, There are usually two different types of royalty programs that you can be involved in. The first one is a 75% royalty program, but you have to meet very specific criteria. The other one, I believe, is a 30 or 35% royalty program, and that is basically one that just about everyone can qualify for. So for this breakdown here, I went with the 75% royalty just to give it, just to be generous, I guess. And let's say it takes 500 hours from start to finish to write a book, to get it edited, and go through the entire process before it's ready for you to self-publish. This example here doesn't take into account any extra fees that a self-published author may have to pay for book cover designing, outside editing if they hire someone else, beta readers if they have to pay for a beta reader, and any other fees that come along with being a self-published author. This is just start to finish, 500 hours, that's it. Now, based on the federal minimum wage for the United States of $7.25, 500 hours of work is the equivalent to about $3,625. Now, let's say you're going to self-publish your book through Amazon. You want a physical copy and you want a Kindle version. You want the physical copy to be about $10, and the Kindle version, you want to be half that at $5. If you're part of the 75% royalty program, your physical copy of $10, one book will make you about $7.25. For your digital copy, that's $5 at a 75% royalty. That one book will make you about $3.75. So just to break even and not even make any profit based on the time it took you just to write the book and not do any marketing, any interactions with podcasts and YouTube channels and, any of the other marketing stuff that goes along with it, just to break even, that author would need to sell about 500 physical copies of their book or about 1,000 digital copies of their book. Now, if you think about it, it's really difficult to be a self-published author and get your book out there unless you're really good at marketing or you've got some really great friends. This is why a lot of people tend to go the traditional route with a traditional publisher, because sometimes they handle all the marketing and the back-end stuff for you. And if you publish with a big name publisher like Llewellyn, for example, they're already well known, they already have a large following, and the chances are you're going to sell more books if you go through someone like Llewellyn. Now, if you don't meet the criteria for the 75% royalty program through KDP, if you publish independently and you have to go with a 30 to 35% royalty, you're going to have to sell even more books just to break even and just to be compensated for the time that it took you to write whatever book you wrote. When you pirate books from occult authors, you are stealing from a small business. You are stealing money from the authors who have poured their hearts and souls into the books that they write. For what? So you don't have to pay for it? So you can read it whenever you want? I don't understand. Actually, let me back that up really quick because I do understand. I'm going to be 30 years old this year. As a teen with no money and who had the entire internet at my fingertips, I have pirated occult books before. I don't do it anymore. I have grown and I have learned of the harm that comes from stealing these books from the authors. Authors depend on their royalties to pay their bills. They depend on their royalties to pay their rent and to feed their families. The same way that anybody else who goes to a 9-to-5 depends on their paycheck to pay their bills and feed their families. It's not right to take these books from these authors just because you feel like you can, because you feel like you're entitled to the information. I've seen several different arguments for why it's okay to pirate books. Some of those arguments include things like, well, I don't have the money to buy these books, or information should be free, or capitalism sucks, let's stick it to the man and not give them our money. But there are issues with each of those arguments. The first one, you don't have the money to pay for the book that you want to read. You have other options. I do not advocate stealing any non-essential item, especially under a capitalistic society, which we happen to live in. We can't just ignore the fact that even though capitalism has its cons, even though there are issues with capitalism that affect every single one of us, we can't just stop participating and expect everyone else to hop in and create a free society. It doesn't work that way. We live in a capitalistic society where people have to work to pay their bills. And the authors are putting in the work and giving information, and they need to be compensated for their time. It's not a free society. You can't just take what you want when you want it. And then to that other argument that information should be free. Well, if you're watching this video right now, hello, you have come across free information. My channel and my website are full of information about witchcraft, about paganism, about tarot, and it's all free. Yeah, on my channel, you might have to sit through 5 seconds of an ad before you can skip it. But you know what? The 5 cents I get from that ad goes back into either my channel or it helps me put food on my family's table. My channel's not the only one out there that has free information. YouTube is full of channels that talk about witchcraft and paganism from many different perspectives. There are websites and blogs full of information that is free to access. You don't need to read books to learn witchcraft. You don't need to read books to learn about the occult. Those books aren't a necessity. They are a plus. They are a privilege to have. And it's not something that is essential to anybody's practice. Books are good resources. Yes, I'm not going to discount the fact that there are authors out there who could write 1 million books and people would buy all of them because they are good resources and the information that they present is easily digestible and easy to understand, and they provide exercises and spells and things to think about. But books aren't an essential part of practice for witchcraft and the occult. You can literally learn witchcraft and most other things in the occult without books, just by finding free information online that's not a book, that's not something that's been pirated, or just by actively doing it. I have some final thoughts, and this video has really turned into kind of a rant, and I don't know if it made any sense. But seeing these arguments online about people saying that it's perfectly fine to pirate books from occult and witchcraft authors and from self-published authors and just authors in general has really put me off on publishing my own content. Because if I'm going to spend hours and hours of my time on something, even if I'm passionate about it and even if I enjoy doing it, I'm not going to spend all of this time doing it and putting it together in a presentable manner for people to just steal it or take advantage of it or not compensate me for any time that I put into a paid product. I see it all the time with my crochet stuff because I crochet and I make a lot of handmade things. Some of the things that I make are expensive, but I'm being compensated for my time. I don't even charge myself like $15 an hour to crochet stuff. The standard crafter's minimum wage that I see everywhere online is $10 an hour. That's it. And that's what I charge. I don't take into account the extra supplies or the years that I have been doing this. I just charge a straight $10 an hour. But a lot of the problem with consumers today, and this is in general, obviously it's in general, I'm not speaking about anybody in particular, but a lot of the problems I see from my own experience about consumers today is they think things should be free or they think things should be cheap, but that's not how things work. The reason you can walk into Walmart and get a beanie for $2 is because somebody in another country made that for pennies an hour, and they aren't properly compensated for their time. So think about that when you decide that you want to steal books from occult authors. If I'm put off on publishing any of my work, you want to be part of this community and you want to learn witchcraft and you want to learn about the occult, then be an active part of the community and support the people in the community that you want to get information from. Because if no one supports the authors, if no one supports the artists and the creators, then these people, we're all just going to stop doing it. I mean, you will have people who do it as a passion project. That's fine. But if people are just going to steal from authors, then authors are just going to stop writing their books. I know this video was ranty. I know I don't normally talk about things like this. I don't normally get involved in drama like this. But as someone who's currently writing several books, most of them fiction for myself, I can't ignore when things like this happen in the community and when there are people in the community who think that it's okay. So I'm going to leave links in the description below to where you can get free resources that are legally free that have to do with the occult, witchcraft, paganism, all of it. You know, there's places like Sacred Texts and Project Gutenberg. There is the Libby app, which if you have a library card, connects to your library card and has ebooks. There's also going to be a link in the description to Scribed. Scribed is about $10 a month if you can pay for it. If you use the link in the description, you'll get 2 months for free. Full disclosure, I will also get a free month. But the lack of maturity that I have seen in these arguments for piracy of occult books is unnerving and disheartening. So I hope this video made you think. I hope maybe you learned a thing or two. And if you've watched this far, thanks for watching the whole video. And I will be back next week with a less ranty video. Bye for now.